Rubber hits the road. Hard talk meets great music. Monday to Thursday, 4 to 6 p.m. on NETT Radio, taking you above and beyond.
So the treasury broke and they say that recession jamming. So to foreign countries, screening start migrating. They lose faith in the country, they say we gone down the drain. They say no more could we see happy times again. But the will to recover in my people like have confidence. Although many may seem to feel that I talking nonsense, but the majority of we decide we're not going to run, because now is the time to show we patriotism. For we country facing, is that is our. So our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just give one more try, life could be much sweet.
Well, everybody, good afternoon to you. And of course, welcome. Good to have you here. It is New Era TT Radio, the heartbeat of the Caribbean. Yeah, and of course, the pride and joy. It's a real pleasure to be here with you on an afternoon. Welcome inside of the DriveTime Exchange. And of course, we can make it if we try. We just have to keep on trying. And yeah, this is where we are marshaled by none other than our journalist extraordinaire, Tony Fraser. Tony, good afternoon to you.
And good afternoon to you, Charlo. And once again, you have hit the nail on the head with the right song to play in the circumstances. So congratulations to you, my friend.
Well, thank you so much.
For reading and anticipating the message clearly.
Yes.
All right. So we're going to take up on a subject matters that we raised a couple of weeks ago with a few people, and we intend to pursue it because we think it's an important aspect of not only living in Trinidad and Tobago, but living wherever you are. It's about not where you started, but it's where you have got to in life. And we have had a number of such persons who have come and talked about their lives and how they have faced the challenges ahead of them. We have two such persons this afternoon. One is a pastor, Nicholas Constantine, and he's from the Streams of Freedom Ministries International. And he is not always where he is now. He has not always been where he is now. So he has come to tell us about that story, about how he navigated through the difficult times and not given up, according to Stalin. We can make it through the difficult times. Welcome to the program, Pastor Constantine.
Thank you so much, Tony and Sir Charles, and for all your listeners. Thank you so much for having me on your program.
All right. So we want to hear of your story. You've become a pastor in a church, and therefore it wasn't always like that. You didn't walk down the straight and narrow path to get to where you are. So give our viewers and our listeners an appreciation, in a nutshell, how you where you started and how you navigated this role forward.
Okay, so my story begins when my mom, she left me to go on, um, actually try and improve our lives here in Trinidad. She went to the US, and on making that decision, it caused a series of things to happen in our home, in my life. Because in those days, when your family, they're going through a struggle, because I grew up in a split family. Half of my siblings were from one dad, and half of the other siblings were my dad. So she decided that it wouldn't be able to work out. My dad, he was really upset. He didn't want to mind anyone else's children. So he decided, listen, you need to get an alternative for this. So she decided to write to my brother, who was in the US. He was a Marines at that time. And she got a letter from the Marines that she could come up and pay a visit. She took that opportunity to go up there and make a better life for us. In making that decision, there was a large vacuum in our life. We didn't have our mom again. She was the caretaker. She was the one taking care of me, making the decisions, food, everything, clothing. I was 12 years old. So with that, I was in and out of school after that time. In and out of school. And it was hard to grasp as a 12-year-old with your mom leaving. My dad, he wasn't stable at all. He was an alcoholic, as well as he tried his best to work and do what he needed to get done for the home. However, days there, I started to follow the wrong crowds. Got out onto the streets and started to do crazy things with my life. I got involved in gang life, in drugs. And later
What part
on,
of the country? What part of the country were you from?
Sorry?
What part of the country were you from?
I was from Diego Martin.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was from Diego Martin. I was born in Rich Plain, and I grew up in all the different areas there in Covine and different areas in Pity Valley as well. So with that vacuum that left a space, I went out. I had friends out on the streets. We started to hang out. I started to do marijuana and cocaine with them. And when the coup happened in Trinidad and Tobago, that's when it went totally out of control, because that's when I started to steal to get by in life. I was stealing with my friends. We did all sorts of crazy stuff with the coup happening in groceries and taking goods and trying to survive. So, and meeting people on the streets. I had this girlfriend that I met, and we decided to hang out. We were doing stuff, doing life, and making it work. And my dad ended up kicking me out of the home because he didn't want me at home with a young lady there and two other brothers in the house. So he said, listen, you need to become a man now. You need to get out of the house at 16 years old. I left the home, and I was out on the streets. Decided to go and just hang out on the streets and try to survive and make life work for me. Within that time period of meeting that girl, they always say following the wrong crowd, it leads to dead ends. And that's where my life was headed. With this girlfriend I thought that was healing the pain, all the drugs, the alcohol, all the things, the substance. I was covering up the hurt and the vacuum and the pain that my mom left. So I ended up using and becoming a heavy user. And one day when my eyes started to open to the reality of life is when I had to go out onto the streets and live. I ended up living in Woodford Square for some time, and just being on the streets and sleeping on the streets. The girlfriend I had, the life that she lived was very reckless. And one evening I was kidnapped and taken to Belmont. Some gentlemen, they kidnapped me because of some stuff that she did, and they had me at gunpoint, and they say, you're going to lose your life tonight. All of these things started to open my eyes the purpose of life, where I'm heading, is not the place I should be.
Yeah. What was the purpose of these men holding you? After all, you had nothing. They could get nothing from you or relatives.
Well, the relationship that I had with this young lady, it wasn't all that panned out to be, because not everything that glitter is gold, and she had her baggage as well that she came with. And previous relationships with individuals that she had caused me to get kidnapped, you see. And they were actually looking for her, and they couldn't find her, but they found me, and they knew that we had a relationship together. So that's where that ended up taking taking place like that. And it's when I was in the car with these gentlemen, they were looking for this young lady. And that's the days when Pyramid was around and Roxy Cinemas was there. And on that street going down, these guys were looking for this young lady, and they saw the young lady. I'm in the middle of the car, two gentlemen on my left, one on my left, on my right, with a gun in my ribs. And they saw the young lady and decided to run out to catch her. I ended up running out with this guy, and we ran straight down to the police station in Besson Street to report that. I had no shoes because they took my shoes. And imagine me running down the street as a young man, bare feet, thinking to myself, I'm going to die. What am I doing with my life? And what am I doing with this young lady? So a series of all that started to help me think through life. You see, so then I had this dream whilst with this young lady after that event.
So what transpired at that point? Did you get to the station? Did they get to you, or what transpired? Did they get the young lady?
They didn't get the young lady. We ran away together, ran to the police station. We made the report or whatever it should be. And then I ended up going back home. The solution to home was when I arrived back to the gang, they said, let's go and get these guys. I told them, no, I'm not going to get involved with that anymore. I'm finished.
Mm-hmm. So when you ran out of the car, what, you coupled with her and took off?
She took off ahead of me, and I took off behind her. And the street was so crowded, these guys couldn't do anything else but just look on, because they didn't want to make a scene, knowing that they were, they had guns and stuff like that. They didn't want to make a scene.
So did you all get to the station?
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did. And
what transpired at the station?
We made a report. They said they can't do anything much because, they took us to the place. They took us to there was a basketball court. They took us to the basketball court in Belmont. I knew Belmont really well because my aunt, she lived there. But there was a basketball court I could remember that the police, they put us in the van. They took us to the location that the gentleman, the people were at. They couldn't find anyone. They didn't find anyone. So they say they can't do anything because we couldn't place our identity on the folks because it happened so fast. The girl didn't want to give up anyone's identity, because of risk of her life. She didn't want to put her life in more danger. And yeah, that night.
So you went back home.
Yeah,
I presume you were accepted there by your father and your siblings.
Yeah, I was accepted by my dad for a time until we found a place that we could go and live on our own. Then we found this place.
This is who you're talking about as we?
The girlfriend, my girl. I stayed with her actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I stayed with her. Right. We lived together for a while, trying to make a home and a family. One evening, we decided we were going to get high on drugs and we're going to take our lives. We're not going to live anymore. We're fed up of life. It's over. I'm tired of living in this type of world. And she says, okay, let's do a Romeo and a Juliet. I said, okay, fine. We could go ahead and do that. I said, okay, well, you go first and then I'll come after. So she's climbing up on this tree. And we're on cocaine, we're on marijuana. She's climbing up this tree. She ties the bed sheet around her neck and she says, Are you going to come? I said, yes, I'm going to come. I want to do this. She jumps off of the tree, and the branch, it snaps. When it snaps, my eye, I'm totally conscious of what's happening. And I heard this voice say, what are you doing here? And then I started to wonder and said that this is not the right thing. I'm not going to go through with this. I told her I'd pick her up from the ground. I said, listen, I'm not going to go through this. Let's try another time around. Let's try to live and survive. We don't need to go this direction. So we decided, okay, fine, we're going to do that. That night, Tony, I got this dream that Trinidad and Tobago is being destroyed by fire. And in my dream, I got up crying, telling God, I'm not ready yet. God, I'm not ready. And the young lady decides, when I tell her the dream, she says, why don't you go and play a mark? Why don't you go and play fire? I said, no, this is a totally different dream. I believe that God is trying to tell me something. I was very religious. My mom, we all went to church, different religions and stuff that we practice. But this was something different. On the way to my dad's home to visit him, I got this dream on a Wednesday. I'm on the way to visit my dad on the Thursday. And I met a friend of mine who was a Rastafarian, and we used to hang out together. This gentleman, when I saw him, he's totally different. So I'm wondering to myself, well, if he's the same person, what transpired? So he calls me out. He says, Nicky. I said, what? I said, how are you looking so different? You look changed. What's happening to you? He says, well, I accepted God. I accepted Jesus into my life. He changed my life. I said, what? A devil like you? No way. And he says to me now, I believe that the same change could happen for you. I said, no, not me. I don't think that this is for me. So he invites me, like any good friend, he invites me to church. So the Friday, he says, we're going to have a service. Why don't you come? In those days, when you make a promise to your friend, it was like a blood covenant. It was like a real blood covenant promise to a friend. So I said, okay. He insisted, and I promised. I said, I'll go. Now I need to pass to go out of the village. I need to pass right in front of this church. And now I'm
Which
heading
church
out.
is this?
Yeah, it was a church up in Pity Valley. A small little church at that time. And I was going out to the Friday. I dressed and got ready to go out. And I'm passing in front of this church, Tony. And I am not going to go in. I already made up in my mind, I'm not going to go to this church. And as I'm passing, a voice in my head says, you remember you made a promise. I said, what is this? So I saw this usher at the door, this young lady at the door. And I told the young lady, I said, listen, could you go inside and tell my friend that I cannot come? She says, mister, I can't take messages. I said, okay. She sounded very rude in front of a church. So I asked her again, politely. I said, I'm getting a little upset because of how she kind of pushing it. I said, listen, I cannot go into the church. I don't want to enter the building for certain reasons. She says, listen, mister, I cannot take any message. I'm nobody's messenger. I said, okay, wow. She kind of real fresh and rude. And she give me the kind of sassy kind of way. So I get really upset now. And I tell her, I said, listen, you don't understand. I just smoke marijuana, I just took cocaine, I just drink. I'm not going to go into this holy place. Thinking that would convince her to take a message from me, she pushed open the door and she says, listen, mister, I'm not your messenger. I'm nobody's messenger. The pastor told me to stay right here. Go in for yourself and take your message. I get so upset, I walked into the church, sat down right behind my friend, and I became speechless. I couldn't say a word. The pastor now is preaching and ministering and saying things, good things. He says, all who needs prayer to come up. All who needs help, come to the altar. If you need a change, you're probably in the right place. And I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, and all of a sudden I'm up at the front. I'm standing there. And I curse in church now saying, what am I doing up here? The F word. I said, what am I doing up here? And all of a sudden, when I look down at my feet, I realize I'm standing with a group of people, a line of people. This pastor prays for everyone and leaves me alone up there. And I'm standing there feeling like a fool, wondering, what am I doing in this place? I just smoke. I'm feeling uncomfortable. And this man, he's forgotten to pray for me. I turn to go back to my seat. I say, I'm tired of this. I turn and I'm going back to my seat. And he touches me on my shoulder. And he says, young man, what do you want here? I say, but you said all who needs prayer to come. He says, no. What do you really want? I said, okay. I said, probably I need some change in my life. He says, okay, we're going to pray for you. He starts to call all the men, Tony, all the men from the church. He starts to call. Now, I know about all these demonic stuff and things. So I stand up and ready to fight now. I don't want nobody put any kind of zombie or demonic thing on. I'm ready to fight. He says, no, young man, cool yourself. We're going to pray for you. Don't worry. And these men circle me, Tony. And as they circle me, they lay their hands on me. And he says, young man, just give your life to God. He would do something with it far much better than what you want to do. When he said that, it broke me. I started to see all the pain. My mom left. I was angry. I hated her for doing it. All the hurt started to come up. And I broke down right there. I started to cry. And he says, why don't accept Jesus? Why don't follow him? He wants to make a difference in your life. I accepted him that night. All these men started to hug me. That was the first time I ever received so much hugs in my life. Because in my family, if you hug, you're gay. If you hug your dad, hey, what's happening? Oh, my brothers. These men, they hugged, they embraced me, and I felt true love. That was the first time in my life that I felt an embrace of a fatherly, brotherly love. And that night I walked out of church with a new step. But it wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. Because my girlfriend didn't see me for 3 days. And she was wondering what's happening. Now that happened the Friday, I accepted God in my life, changing my life, trying my best. The Sunday now, Tony, I have to go to church. She hasn't seen me for the past 3, 4, 5 days after this. She's wondering where I'm at. I'm in church on a Sunday morning, the first Sunday in my life in a church settings, with the best clothes I could ever dress to say that I have church clothes. My best shirt on, my clothes. And I'm in the church now sitting. I don't know what's happening. I'm just there. I've changed my life. I'm trying my best. She comes to the church and she asks for me. The usher comes in, says there's a young lady outside looking for you. She comes out. I go out. She leads me out of the church. I saw my girlfriend there. She said, what are you doing here? I said, okay, well, I'm trying to change my life. I'm trying to fix things for me. And for
How was
us.
she able to locate you at the church?
She knew where I was through friends because they knew what was happening in my life. I spoke with them,
Okay.
and the message get back to her.
Mm-hmm.
So she's at the church now. I'm in front of her, and she says, so you came for church girls now? You're looking for fresh church things now? I said, no, that's you have the wrong concept. I said, I really want to change my life. I'm trying my best. She says, no. You're not going to do this with me. She rips my shirt, the only shirt I have. She rips it right off of me. And now, Tony, I'm going to hit her. My hand I'm ready to go to hit her in her face. I'm going to cuff her. I'm going to hit her, and all of a sudden I feel the pastor's hand like this. And he holds me. He says, Nicholas, what are you doing? I'm so angry, so frustrated. Now he says, go to my office. You sit down, you cool off. I would talk with her. Spoke with the girl. She ended up in church sitting there. And after that was a series of things after. People think that when you go to church, you think that's it, it's a bed of roses, But it's something that you need to work on your life.
All right. So tell us about the transformation, as short as you possibly can, because
Yes.
we want to get on to where you're at now. the transformation took place over a period of time?
It did. It took place over a period of time, because when I accepted Christ, I thought that it would have improved automatically. Because
It did.
yes, but it
It
took a
didn't.
series of years. It took ups and downs, having to give up substance, having to be tempted through substance abuse and reckless lifestyle. I had to give all those things up. My family, they were on drugs. They were doing stuff. I couldn't stay at home. I ended up telling the pastor, I said, listen, I can't do this. I need help. He says, okay, come and sleep at the church if you could do that. I said, no problem. I don't mind that. I slept on the church floor, Tony, for 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, sleeping on the church floor, reading all the books, educating myself, because I dropped out of school. I didn't know how to read, how to write really well. I started to have to self-educate myself, read books, try and get information in me. And it was a process of time. Right?
All right. So how did you now transform into the pastor that you've become?
Well, Logos came to Trinidad in 1994. That was the first visit of the Logos 2 in Trinidad and Tobago. That was on that first visit, 94,000 people visited the ship at that time.
Right. Just to inform people that the Logos is one of 2 ships that are book ships, as it were. And they go from port to port, and they sell books, and they interact with people and so on. And there are people who come to live and be part of the whole effort of the Logos.
Yes.
That's right. So you went to the Logos.
Yes. So I was a volunteer at first for 2 weeks. Then I extended for another 2 weeks. And I decided, well, I like this. This is helping people, giving knowledge to people. People are excited about this ministry. So I started to investigate, is it possible for a Caribbean person to join this vessel? Now, they had a few Caribbean people on board. But, I said, okay, is it possible that I could go? So I tell the pastor, I said, listen, I feel like God is really leading me to go to this vessel. She says, all right, we're going to look into it. And I sent in my application. And myself and about 325 other individuals did apply for the vessel, to join the vessel. And in that application process, only 2 people were chosen, myself and another young lady. And the ship left Trinidad, and I was to join the ship in Tobago. So I had to go through the whole process of getting the visa to go to France, because the ship was sailing from Tobago to Toulon, to France. And so that was it. It took the journey there. And a new page in my life started right there on that journey. I wasn't fully educated. I didn't know how to respond around 47 different nationalities, so I didn't know how to eat with a knife and a fork. I didn't know much.
So how long did you stay on the vessel, and what happened in the process?
In the process, I kept wondering if it was for me, until I had to accept it, that this was God's plan. And it was a far better plan than mine, because I never believed I could leave Trinidad. Now, just a really quick backdrop to that. My dad didn't believe that I was leaving Trinidad and Tobago. When I told him, I said, Dad, I'm leaving Trinidad and Tobago. He says, son, you're crazy. That church is driving you nuts. I said, no, Dad, I'm leaving. He says, seriously, son? And when I packed my bags, my dad still didn't believe after I packed my bags, I was leaving Trinidad and Tobago. He didn't believe it was possible. So the morning that they came to pick me up to take me to the airport, he says, son, you're really leaving? I said, yeah, I'm leaving. I'm going right here every day. I'm leaving. That was the first time in my life my dad embraced me. He hugged me. And he says, son, enjoy. Take care. He thought I was just joking. But when he didn't see me, then he realized I was gone. And I journeyed on that ship for 5.5 years. I met my wife on the Logos too. She's from Argentina. And that started a whole new chapter in my life. And lived in Argentina, got married in Argentina, lived in Argentina for 6.5 years. And after our time in Argentina, we said it's time to come back to Trinidad. And we came back to Trinidad and started to work with the ministry here. And yeah,
So the ministry that you're involved in, it's part of the whole Logos establishment.
what the logos do, they supply us with books. So when we go to schools, because we go to do motivational teaching speeches at schools, we do motivational talks in schools and churches and community centers. When we're invited, and we take books with us. Our books, the logo supplies us with they're high discounted books. So we offer books at 60 to 80% discounted from the market value. Because of how God used how reading transformed my life, we decided to start a book ministry and offer to have affordable books for families and for individuals. So
So
because of the
your pastorship now, your preparation for pastorship, how and where did that occur? Was it on
that
the
I
ship
could
itself?
yeah that I could on the ship, theology, teaching, studies, sociology. I decided to do different courses on the logos that helped me to be able to counsel, to help suicidal victims, that type of stuff. The discussion, the talks that we have at the schools is to empower students that they could succeed. When we go to schools, they don't believe that I've left Trinidad and visited over 73 different countries. You know, in their eyes, it's an unbelievable task, but we encourage them that they could achieve great things. You know, so we do have a bookstore that helps with what we
Okay,
do.
so let's go to the question now of the ministry, the Streams of Freedom Ministries. Is that connected with the Logos that you move from the ship to this ministry?
No, it's not connected directly, but we are alumni to the logos. We are in our alumni group. It's a supportive group to the logos Hope Ship, and when they come and they visit. Also, my daughter, she would be joining in August. She would be joining the vessel.
All right. So how
Yeah.
did you get onto this ministry now, the Streams of Freedom Ministries?
The Streams of Freedom, we saw the need that people could have complete freedom over situations, both emotional, spiritual, psychological, and emotional. So,
So
so we
what was the ministries established in Trinidad that you joined, or did you start the
yes, it
ministries?
it started here in Trinidad and Tobago. 6 years ago, we started the ministry through the COVID time. It's a bilingual ministry as well, so we also
So
reach out
what
to.
I'm trying to get at, is it you and your group established the ministry, or was it an already established ministry that you joined?
No, it's my wife and I, with a group of ministers, that we established the Streams of Freedom Ministries. We wanted people to experience that freedom and to be able to help people
Is it
experience it.
connected to an international ministry?
Not so much as in the teachings that we give is a lot of internationally based teachings that we give and workshops to empower entrepreneurs and different workshops and studies.
So there is no Streams of Life ministries anywhere else in the world,
In
as far as you
Africa,
are aware.
in Africa, we have started with a youth group that they have adopted the Streams of Freedom, and I do reach out to them through live streaming, like what we're happening here right now, and they're really well with that.
So let's deal with your conversion now from
Yes,
being on the streets, being in this church that you started in. What's the name of the church, incidentally, that you started with?
it's the name of the church I started with is Outreach Ministries. Yeah.
Okay, so you started there and then you transferred. And would you say that this Streams of Life Ministries is your creation, your being, your group of people? Is it
Yes,
something that you created?
yes, Streams of Freedom Ministries, we believe that the Lord placed that in our hearts, really to reach out to families, to touch lives, that they themselves could be a stream. So there are many people that we work with who have substance problems within their families, maybe alcohol or any kind of substance abuse. And we try our best to help families walk through those tough seasons and storms of life.
How do you reflect now, moving from where you started, 12 years old on the streets, etc.? How do you, I don't know, cater for, explain this transformation in your life from then to your present status?
You know, the Lord works with transformation, and it takes time. You know, and it's something that you can't rush, or else, because with your downfalls, you know, people think that as believers or a Christian, you wouldn't make mistakes. You know, they think that people in church are perfect people, and they're not. Everyone makes mistakes, and it's like a work in progress. You see, so it's each one helping each other. I remember J.H. Nevins made a statement, and he says, Christianity is one hungry man telling another hungry man where he could find bread. And then I heard Mahatma Gandhi made a statement, and he said, God had no other choice but to express himself through bread. Because there are a lot of hungry people. They're hungering for something. You know, they need help. And that's I could reflect my story in that way. I needed help, my appetite. I had to change, you know, I had to change my diet from the things of destruction to the things that could give me life. And I could also be a help to others.
How large is the congregation that now exists in this ministry?
Our congregation right now is around 45 people. The building that we're in right now, it's a new building for us that we have just moved into a month. You know, so
where are the funds coming from to sustain this church? 45 people does not sound like a large enough group to sustain the organization that you talk about.
Yeah, well, we have a book ministry that we are, my wife and I, we're both managers, and we have a company. It's called the Book Experience, and that partly helps to sustain the ministry work and reaching out to people that we have, as well as donations come in, people who would like to help and stuff. That helps also, because we distribute food, clothing, you know, helping people as much as we could. That's what we aim to do.
All right, so let's take a break in it, Sir Charles. And if there are callers who want to come and talk with Pastor Constantine, we let them in and let them talk to the pastor and get a sense of where to go from here.
When the treasury was full and happy time, some was enjoying.
Your mid-morning just got better. Join Sir Charles for the mid-morning mix and mingle, where good music, real talk, health, and family matters come together, and your voice is heard. Whether you're at work, on the go, or just taking a break, this is the perfect mix to keep you engaged, informed, and entertained. The mid-morning mix and mingle, weekdays, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Looking for trusted, affordable security and property services? Horatio Services has you covered across Trinidad and Tobago. We offer battle security, K9 patrols, 24/7 protection, and all sorts of private investigations, discreet, professional, and effective. But that's not all. We also provide construction. From building to renovation, we bring your vision to life. Landscaping, keep your outdoors looking sharp and inviting. Maintenance, repairs, upkeep, and everything in between. At Horatio Services, you get professionalism, reliability, and personal care. Whether it's safety or property support you need, visit us at Marino Street, Arima, or call 388-7070. Today, Horatio Services, protection, precision, peace of mind.
S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box.
Advertise with us on New Era TT Radio, the fastest growing streaming platform for talk in Trinidad and Tobago. Audio and video ads welcome. Elevate your brand with us. Connect with us at newerattradio@yahoo.com or call us at 299-5156. Now, what are you waiting for?
Bringing you full discussions, the hottest topics, and some tracks to keep you moving. The DriveTime Exchange on NETT Radio, taking you above and beyond.
People remain on the same old ghetto in John. But to get the economy return today on some footing.
So as we come back inside the DriveTime Exchange here on New Era TT Radio, remember people, you can get us on newerattradio.com, New Era TT Radio. If you're on TuneIn, all your smart devices or Google devices, you can also get us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We are there in all of those spaces, right? So if you would like to get in on the show, now is a good chance for you to do so. You can give us a call at 281-1315. That's 281-1315. So it is back to you.
Thank you very much, Charlo. And as we indicated, we're talking with Pastor Nicholas Constantine, who had something of a colorful career before branching off and getting saved in a church in Diego Martin, Pity Valley, I think he said, and now starting a church, a ministry, as it were, with his wife. And they are, I think he said, in Shogunas,
Yes.
in a part of Shogunas, and therefore they are moving forward on that. As we indicated, this program is about getting people to talk about their stories, what turned them around. And in addition to Pastor Constantine, at 5 o'clock, we're going to go to another individual who not so much turned his life around. I don't know exactly the details, but somebody who has risen in the corporate world without the veritable gold spoon in his mouth, but has achieved quite a lot in the circumstances. We're going to go to him after we finish speaking with Pastor Constantine. So the effort now to keep the ministry going, to ensure, are you reaching out to ensure that there is a growth in the number of people who come to the church, so that expansion is possible in terms of getting new people into the church. Incidentally, the question I want to ask also is, the majority of people, are they coming like you came to Jesus, or have they been Christians and they have just fallen into another religion, as it were?
No, some of them, they're coming looking for help, in certain areas of their life that they're struggling with, maybe with their marriage and the substance that's destroying their home. We have seen people coming that way, coming into our ministry that way as well for that help. And it's a general feeling, people coming knowing that they need to get an encounter with God's love, you see. And that's why we tell people, God's love is unconditional, and he wants to have that connection with people. And that's what people come, they come to get that connect with God, and, just to get freedom from certain things, maybe emotional, spiritual deliverance that they're looking for,
Is there a reach out? Is there a reach out element of the ministry, meaning that you, according to the biblical doctrine, you go into the highways and byways and look for people who are struggling like yourself at one point?
Yes, that's very evident at our church. We do that in many different ways. We have people that would either come to an event that we would have, maybe a food distribution, and we share that hope with them as well, or we go to the streets. We have gone to the streets many times, and we continue to do that, and sharing that hope with them out on the streets and meeting people. We have received few phone calls since the article went out in the newspaper. Some people calling in for help, that they need help with their, certain things that they're faced with as well, with substance. So yeah, we continue to do that, going out into the streets and reaching out to people in Chaguanas and around Trinidad and Tobago.
How do you feel having been transformed from your former state to where you are now? Did you think at any point in time in that previous journey that you would emerge from that situation?
How do I feel? Well, as I tell people, normally life is a journey. Life is a journey. And God has enough patience and grace with us, because He's trying to get love to us. And people might think Christianity is an easy thing. It's very hard because you need to give up your will to accept God's will. You see, you give your will up to accept God's will. And that's why we work with people, work with individuals to help them reach that point. And that's what I saw with my life as well.
Did you feel at any point in time when you were going through the struggles that you would come out of those situations and reach to a place of safety as you have at this point in time?
Yeah, I always believe anytime God has the near-death experiences that I had, I took it as that was God's grace alone. And He kept me for a purpose and for a reason. And that's why I'm expressing right now today. The purpose that He kept me alive, that He gave me so many opportunities, that I didn't die. I saw friends close to me die at gunpoint, very close. And, I thank God that, He has given me that opportunity to live, that I could share that with folks. Like when we go to the schools and empower the young people. I want to empower people so that they could achieve success in their life. That's the main
So you have a schools ministry also?
As well, we go into schools and I do RI at schools, and we do the motivational speaking at some schools that they invite us to. We probably have visited over 200 schools already. And we take the material into them that's very affordable, and they're very happy when we come because they could afford the books that we have. And as well as we could motivate them to succeed. We go to the schools, we say, listen, miss, we tell the principal, give us the toughest class that you have. I want to reach out to them. The students, and many students have come to us and said that they have they wanted to take their own lives and, stuff like that. We have encouraged them to stay focused. Don't drop out of school like what I did, but stay focused, have patience with your teachers. They go through issues as well, and have a little patience and work together.
Have institutions, business institutions, even the government, have they been aware of what your church is attempting to do? And has there been any attempt to involve themselves in the ministry's work?
I am at this point right now because of we have interacted with different ministers on occasions. My wife is Argentinian, so recently we went to the Argentine ambassadors celebration they had for independence, and we interacted with many of the ministers at that point. And now we're looking to have a meeting with the Ministry of Education to see how we could, to see how I personally could be involved to make an impact and really speak into the students' lives. I really want my story to help in any way possible.
So, Pastor Constantine, we are winding down now, and I want to give you a minute or two to talk about your an opportunity to encourage others who may be at the point that you were at many years ago to look for transformational possibilities.
Yeah, I want to encourage people. The generation that we're at right now is a generation of information. They have a whole number of information mediums, social media that's coming to them. And I want to encourage parents and all the students and anyone listening, be patient with one another. No one knows exactly what another person is carrying, what they're going through, what they're faced with, and challenges. Me running to a substance was I trying to help heal my pain instead of running into the arms of a heavenly Father, a God that could understand me. When everyone turned their back on me, I ended up turning to God. And God had a church family there that could help support me. And maybe I need that type of thing. You know, a
Do you think
family
that,
could support.
yeah, do you think that you were exceptional, or that other people can walk the same road that you've walked?
I believe other people can. You know, it's a trial and error. You know, more victories than defeats. You know, that's what you aim for, because you know every season you grow in different areas. You know, when a person comes to God, God works on their character. You know, it works on your integrity. It works on your, you know, on your emotions. That's what God does. He works on your character, and He builds from there.
Okay.
In order
Well,
to be an example.
can I ask a question?
Sure,
Yes.
sure.
You know, because I understand, Pastor, okay, that you've moved, and of course you've moved on
Yes.
family wise and everything. But what became of the young lady that you were with in the beginning? What became of her?
So Charles, people ask me that, but to make a long story short with that, because when Logos came back in 1996, she came onto the ship looking for me. I was already engaged, so she came onto the ship looking for me, and she was telling everyone that we were still together, and we were not. But she decided to just continue to live her life the way it was. I did meet with her and tried to figure out if she wanted to change. We were engaged to be married, and that had to be broken because she didn't want to live the same life. She decided to go back into her old lifestyle. But from there, that point in 96 that I saw her, I never knew anything else about her. You know, hopefully she made it through life and stuff like that.
Hopefully, maybe one day she would probably just appear and
Maybe.
maybe have a good positive life also.
And I will be right there with open arms to invite her in and, help her to, in whatever area. I always want to help people. I want to give people hope.
Okay, so Pastor Constantine, we thank you for coming and telling your story today, and we hope that there were persons outside there who were listening and learning and understanding that they don't have to stay where they are, but there are possibilities going forward. According to Sir Charles and Black Stalin, you could make it if you try.
Yes. Thank you.
So our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember. Yeah. We fired the old session managers we had working, and it's a new group we went and we bring in. And if the goods we require, them new managers not supplying. When election time come back wrong, it's new ones we bring in. But if it's one thing about my people, I could guarantee that they would never ever put party.
Well, everybody, and of course, remember this is your DriveTime Exchange. Very interesting story there, Tony. Very, very.
Yeah. It shows that I keep saying you don't have to stay where you started. You have to move forward from there. And a lot of us have had that experience in different ways, perhaps not as dramatic as he has. My own story, and I'm not here to tell my story to take away from other people, but it was a modest start, and things happened over a period of time. So anyone who has, and the story, the message we want to send through is that you don't have to stay where you started. Ambition, effort, and I am sure that you can tell the same kind of story.
Definitely. Maybe one day I would definitely tell that story.
I will encourage you to be my guest at some point in time.
At some point in time, I will take it up.
Yeah. All right. So we expect that we're gonna have a young man called Andre Jeffers. Have you seen him yet, Sir Charles?
Actually, no, I have not. But they was said, play your song in something, and they could probably shoot him a call and see where he's at.
Okay.
All right, and we'll be back shortly, people.
And without social unrest, poor people paying the price. Because they know for the country, nothing too much to sacrifice. And if the country facing its darkest hour, so our people needs us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just give one more try, life could be much sweeter. Anytime that we hear Trinbago is facing a crisis, as loyal citizens, it's our duty to stay and assist. For we know to ourselves there could never become a day we're not deaf to this country we can't repeat. So who want to go, I have no objection. But while outside, I want you to have some consideration.
All right, so we are back inside the DriveTime Exchange. Remember, you are listening to the Era TT Radio. All right, so Tony, I see our guest has arrived.
Yes, Andre Jeffers. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, doing well. Good to
Okay.
be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. We have a segment of this program in which we seek to talk to people like yourself, young people who have, I want to say made it in life, but that's not what I meant. What I mean is that they have moved from a position of, sometimes a struggle in different ways to a position where they have achieved a number of things. And I don't know too much about your background, except that you're an executive at a major company, and I haven't invited you on the basis of your job. I have invited you as somebody that I perceive to have moved from one position to almost at the top of the executive ladder of corporate Trinidad and Tobago. And I thought to myself, this young man must have a story that can be of interest. And the purpose of it really is to encourage people who did not start off as well as they would have liked to. And some of them have gone in, negative directions, and and have paid the penalty for it. While others like yourself, as I said, you will tell us where you came from in terms of your organization to get to where you are. Andre Jeffers, go ahead.
Sure. Again, thank you for having me. I want to say good afternoon to all the listeners. And I hope that my story is one that, if anyone can be inspired by, encouraged by, then I think that my purpose here would have been served. So, yes, Tony, as you mentioned, I am Andre Jeffers. I am the Chief Strategy Officer at the Yankson McCall Group. I am 37 years of age. I also now have, kind of come into the spotlight, not so much for my corporate endeavors, but I have had some success over the last few years in terms of my songwriting. I've always been an avid fan of the culture, and it has led from a curiosity to an endeavor to what has now grown into a level of expertise in terms of songwriting. I was the writer of the 2025 Road March Party, sung by Marshall Montano. I was the writer of the 2020 Road March Stage Gone Bad, sung by Kess and Iowa George. I was the co-writer of the 2023 Road March runner-up Come Home by Skinny Fabulous and Nyla Blackman. 3 songs that I think really resonated over the last few years. And so people may look at the combination of those two, Tony, and wonder, how did a 37-year-old boy from San Fernando get here?
What part of San Fernando are you from?
San Fernando proper. I am from a street called La Chapelle Street, which is parallel to Superior Street, horizontal. I mean, it's perpendicular to Lesafort Street. I was not too far, if you could remember, from where Fong's used to be on Superior Street. Walking distance from that. So right in San
Fernando. Is that close to where the former mayor of San Fernando, I think he still has some kind of establishment there? Former cyclist,
it's the Athlete.
Athlete,
Yes. Athlete had his place at the end of Superior Street. Right. I probably lived about 3 minutes drive from there.
Okay.
Yeah, so grew up in San Fernando. My parents were both entrepreneurs. My dad started working at Petrotrin, and then my mother and dad jointly started a computer literacy business called Personalized Computer Services, and they sort of did, simple computer literacy typing courses, Microsoft Suite, how to use Word, Excel Access, at a time where computers and desktops were becoming more and more prevalent in the working world, and both individuals and corporations had to send their teams for training. So it started as a small business in the one of the rooms in the house with about 4 or 5 desktops, and eventually grew to its own building on Superior Street, actually. So my parents, for most of their time together, worked a stone's throw away from home. So small business was really what was the engine. I grew up with my older sister. She was a little bit older than I was, and I went to Naprima College in San Fernando, the best boys' school in the country. And Tony, I was. You say that just by the way, okay? Well, but in fact, when you're speaking with a matter of fact, you don't need to emphasize. You just press on. You just press on. So,
go ahead,
So I was at least by Naprima College standards, the standards were very high. I was a below average student. I was always blessed with talent, and I was smart, but I had other things to study in high school. I was playing football. I was doing everything else but work and homework. But I always knew that when it mattered, I would need to settle. And so while I was balancing and playing football and cricket, and at that time, entering the little calypso competitions in school, and I was Mr. Extracurricular. When that time came for CXC, and I realized, okay, this thing counts. The other stuff, the term tests and the report cards, I can explain my way out of those when I reach home. But you see, this one counts. And I remember, there's this period where they send you home just for like a month before the exam. And I remember this was the first time I guess I recognized it in me. Nobody had to tell me anything. I took a table and a chair and set up shop in the same side room that the business started in. And I camped out there for a month, and I self-studied. I self-taught. And to give you the extent to how much ground I covered in that period of time, unbeknownst to me, in the mock exam, which is the exam right before they send you home for that month, I failed the mock exam math and got a distinction in CXC in math. Okay. And so I was playing the fool until it was time that I realized I can't play the fool here. This sticks. There's a stain. CXC yourself say, how to wash that out. And I think very early on, I recognized in myself that 2 things. One, that without hard work and discipline and putting in the effort, talent has little value. And secondly, the flip side of that, you would be surprised where discipline and hard work and endeavor takes you.
Right.
And so I was in a sort of a lower middle class upbringing, didn't want for anything, but was not living in any sort of extravagance, and certainly in no position to afford to go off to university abroad, but that was my desire. And my mother happily said, well, if you want to go, then you're going to need to get somebody to pay for it. And so in my mind, as I got into Form 6, I had to win a scholarship. That was my route. Of course, I continued to play the fool in school, football, now at the intercal level. So many other priorities. But I wanted to go to school in the US. And so I signed up for the SAT exam and did the same thing, Tony. And as only as I've retold this story later on, I realized I didn't go to any classes for SAT. In fact, I went to the first class and I told my mom, and I said, you're wasting your money. And every Saturday morning, with a timer, I would sit and do past papers. I got better and better and better without anybody saying, Andre, go sit, go do. This mattered. This was a stain. This was what motivated me to say, no, I need to put my all into this. And with that discipline, I was able to get an excellent score in the SAT exam and got a full scholarship to Howard University.
Okay.
Tuition, meals, room, board, everything. And I think that was, to me, the start of me actually starting to live into my potential, not on a part-time basis, but on a full-time basis as a moral obligation to the gifts I've been blessed with.
Okay. So, Andre, I want you to summarize for our viewers and listeners, what drove this thing for you to reach the point that you got the scholarship. And after that, we're going to talk about how you did at Howard and so on. But
yeah,
in point form, what were the things that made you reach to where you got the scholarship and eventually to where you are now?
Sure. So the scholarship admission was a combination of your GPA, which is for the US, they take your CXC scores and extrapolate it into a US form GPA. So I needed to do well in my CXC, which I did. The SAT, which is the entrance exam, which is quite a challenging exam to score in the upper regions. And I knew I needed to practice. And so every Saturday, I want to say for about 3 months, I did the exam under examination conditions, did a past paper of it, corrected it myself. And importantly, I went to when I was correcting it with the answers, the ones I got wrong, I wanted to see why I got them wrong. So it was a real fulsome, not just practice and repetition, but engaging in the why it didn't happen. Why was it wrong? Why me thinking this was the right answer ended up not being wrong. So I mastered the exam in a sense through discipline, focus, and desire. This was my only way, Tony. This was my only way to do it, right? It had no other option or choice.
I like the summary of points. Repeat them.
Yes. Yeah.
Objective.
I had desire. I had a clear objective, and I created a path to get there, a plan.
Right, and a lot of effort, a lot of self-motivation and driving you forward.
A lot of sacrifice, a lot of self-sacrifice.
And you had no gold spoon. Your parents were not able to pay for higher education for you.
No. That was not on the cards. And so I think that singular focus also drove me in a significant way.
Right. How do you, without attempting to compare yourself with anyone, or let me put it another way, if those factors didn't come forward in your life or you didn't bring them forward, it would have been an ordinary existence for you, would you say?
I think maybe not ordinary, but potentially ordinary. I can't necessarily look in with a crystal ball. Certainly, I would not be where I am today, achieving the level of success that I've achieved as early in my life as I have today, with the characteristics that I think define me now differently than a lot of my peers. I think had I just continued on, stayed in Trinidad, tried to figure it out after my Form 6, I think I would have been living below my purpose and potential. Right. And it's almost as if the discipline, hard work met potential, met the talent deposit to create purpose, because your purpose can be missed if you don't recognize it. And I didn't recognize it in its fullest then, but I recognize the gifts I had been blessed with. And so that marriage is what now allows for what I think to be me living in my purpose.
Yeah, yeah. I must say, this is to you and to our audience members, that when I saw you, encountered you in the position that you are in, I thought to myself that this fella has to be bright. This fella has to be achiever. I wouldn't go into why I have concluded that, but you know that you have arrived at a position in a big corporation in Trinidad and Tobago, because of ability. And nobody is going to give you, and this is the thought that went through my mind, nobody is going to give you in that or any other serious corporate organization a pass simply on the basis of you being Andre Jeffers.
Or being a nice guy or any of the above. Absolutely not. Your contribution needs to be defined and significant, and your value needs to be demonstrated consistently. Absolutely.
That's almost like a math sum.
This plus this. In brackets. For sure.
So we're talking with Andre Jeffers, who is an executive of one of the big corporations in Trinidad and Tobago, and indeed the region. And he said it at the start, it's the Ansa Makal Group. But as I said also that we are not engaged in the corporation. We're just simply making the point that he belongs to the corporation. And we're talking about his movement forward from where he started. So give our viewers, our listeners now an appreciation of the life at Howard and you achieving the goals that you set yourself at that well-known university to Trinidadians and Caribbean people.
Yes, I think Howard was really, as I mentioned before, the start of me really living into ensuring that the talent that I've now demonstrated twice, what I did in CXC and my SAT, Andrew, there's something there. And this idea of only going to drink from the well of discipline when you need to, imagine what you can achieve, and that is now a full-time practice. So I went into Howard and I was focused. I was 4.0 GPA after my freshman year. I was within the honors program in the School of Business. I was high achieving, and I surrounded myself with other high achievers. A lot of the Trinidadians that went up there from all across Trinidad, they were serious, right? You're on scholarship. Scholarship is a thing you can lose. And so it enabled us to be around like-minded people who were focused on doing the people work. And that having that culture around me really helped me tap into going from a sporadic discipline that's intense, a sporadic, intense discipline that's event-driven, to a real sustained discipline over the course of weeks, months, and years. So I was a high achiever academically, and in my second year, I switched my major into finance because there were a lot of corporate sponsors of the honors program in the School of Business. The honors program was this elite subsection of the School of Business at Howard, about 60 of us across freshman through senior level. And it was heavily sponsored by corporate sponsors in the US. And the investment banks were a part of that. And so every Thursday, while everyone was kind of done with their schoolwork, at about 5 or 6 p.m., the honors program, we had to come dress in suits and interact and network with these corporate representatives, hear them present, ask them questions, sit to dinner with knife and fork, and really start to compute yourself as a sophisticated business person in the world. And I started noticing every time the investment bankers come, they have the sharpest suits and the sharpest ties and the brightest ones. And, I said, I want to do what those guys do. They seem like the best of everyone that comes through here. I want to do what they do. And so I investigated, what do I need to do that? Well, you need to kind of maybe move from being in such a general management major into something more specific. And there are these things you need to get smart on outside of the curriculum and try to secure an internship at one of these Wall Street firms. And so I set about in doing that in my second year systematically, and I was able to secure some interviews with some of the Wall Street firms and was able to successfully secure an internship at 19 years old on Wall Street with the renowned, but although now renowned not necessarily for the best things, I secured an internship with Lehman Brothers, the investment bank, the well-voted investment bank on Wall Street, doing mergers and acquisitions advisory as a summer analyst. That was a 8-week program during the summer with students from all over the country, right? Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and I performed extremely well. And at the end of that summer, they offered me to come back the following summer once I'd completed my third year at college. Did that successfully, and they offered me, when you complete your senior year, to come back full-time as an investment banking analyst at Lehman Brothers. That was in August of 2008. And in October or November of 2008, Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. That started the financial collapse that would have ensued shortly thereafter. So I've lived some history.
Okay.
I've lived some history. But
what you're describing there, Andre, not me to tell you your business, but it seems like a kind of something that you have to write down for young people who, go through different stages of their lives. And I am impressed by the discipline and the thought that you had. Do you consider yourself a natural genius? Well, let's not talk about genius. Let's talk about, those young fellas who are bright, put a lampshade over their heads. Do you consider that, or do you think that there were other factors which drilled into this success?
Definitely no on the genius. I know, remember, this is coming from somebody as I'm growing up in an Aprima college environment with a bunch of bright kids where I'm not applying myself that well. I come in with report cards. I come in 21st, 25th in Tesla, right? So the idea of me being this, I knew I was bright. I was bright. Everything bright and high achieving. Look, I think it's a combination of things, and not to get spiritual. I do believe that I'm living a purpose-driven life. I do believe I was born for purpose. I do believe I was given certain gifts with a purpose of influence, and a purpose of influence ultimately for good. So I believe that from a grounding perspective, that a lot of my natural blessings in terms of the talent deposits come from God. Secondly, I believe that while I don't think I'm the brightest, what I do believe is that I have a unique combination of talents that affords me and allows me the opportunity to make significant impact, to resonate very strongly with people, and that lends to opportunity that I walk into those doors. And typically, with my competitive nature, I walk into those doors with a desire and an appetite to absolutely win. And so it's less about some sort of off-the-chart smarts. I see it more as a checkbox. Smart, check. Whether you're on the bottom half of the smart or the top smart, check. But that's just one check. It's, can you match that with being brave, with being agile, with being emotionally intelligent and understanding people's circumstance, with being genuine and authentic, with being personable, with being genuinely interested in human beings and the human condition and people. I think it's more the combination of skill set package that makes me unique rather than any one thing peaking off the charts.
All right, we are talking with Andre Jeffers, and once again, I want to urge him to write down those things. They can become a textbook for success. He doesn't claim to have been a genius or particularly bright, not that he was dull. He was bright, but he wasn't as focused as he needed to be. And over the years, with certain realizations of his status in life, his parents, the affordability of a university education abroad and so on, he decided he had to put those things in place to be successful into the future. Charlo, let's take a break now, and we're going to come back to talk to Andre about other aspects going forward. Indeed, finishing his sorry, Charlo, before we go into that, let me just ask you to finish the university, the Howard thing. And
let me round that out.
Postgraduate work, yes.
Let me round that story out. So I get this off. I go back to school to complete my senior year, and I see it on the TV. The company's bankrupt, and so I now start for the first time in now 2 or 3 years. I looking for a job. Before I was coasting because every summer I had a job to go back the next summer. Now I have a full-time job. I got back to school and I rocket back. I kicking my feet up, and all of a sudden there's this thing that's now in flux, which was previously meant to be certain. And so I started interviewing, but of course at that time Wall Street is collapsing. The world is turning upside down. There's not a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of uncertainty. But again, you will start to see the signs of purpose driven and the fact that there is also a level of divine intervention here. Two things happened. One, Barclays Capital, significant UK European bank, stepped up and bought Lehman Brothers investment banking North American business out of bankruptcy. Two, Barclays then decided to honor my offer.
Okay.
And three, because of Barclays being a sort of new entrant at that time to North American investment banking, if you could remember, when all the banks were now teetering, they all had to take what was called TARP funding. That was the acronym for it. It was effectively bailout funding from the government so that the whole of Wall Street doesn't collapse.
Yeah.
And there were conditions attached to that TARP. And one of the conditions attached to that TARP was that banks that would have received that TARP would not be able to issue working visas to non-US citizens until the TARP is repaid. So this is our money, US money that we're giving you to prop up. You can't be going and handing a bunch of jobs to foreigners. Barclays Capital is one of maybe 2 banks on Wall Street that did not need or take the TARP funding. And so that allowed me to be able to have my working visa applied for and approved. And I began working full-time at Barclays Capital as a mergers and acquisition investment banker after graduating at the top of my class at Howard University and delivering the valedictorian speech.
Okay, wonderful. Did you subsequently do postgraduate work?
I didn't. I mean, my postgraduate work was on the job. I worked for a few years on Wall Street at M&A banker. And I was subsequently, after my first year, but it didn't kick in until a couple of years later, was recruited by a global private equity investment firm called the Carlyle Group, top 5 private equity investment house that only recruits out of investment banks. So Wall Street is their training ground to get the analytical guys to come and actually do the investing themselves.
So you did postgraduate work at the establishment.
Exactly.
We're talking with Andre Jeffers, who is an executive at one of the big corporations, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but across the Caribbean, the Ansa McCall Group. And he's telling us how he moved from being, I suppose, above ordinary student in his youth to where he has got to today. So, Charlo, let's take a break, do some messages, and we come back to this very interesting story.
Flair Auto Services Limited, your one-stop auto repair shop, located at number 1 Industrial Lane, Flair, right opposite the brewery on the Eastern Main Road. Yes, we do it all. Repairs to all makes and models, from your everyday sedan to SUVs, light trucks, pickups, and panel vans. We're also the sole distributors of Devante tires, certified VTS inspection station, plus a wide range of services: oil change, front end and suspension repairs, tune-ups, tire alignment, batteries, electrical work, radiator and cooling system, AC repairs, and accessories galore. We offer pickup and drop-off service too. Call us today at 662-6545 or 662-6572. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Flair Auto Services Limited, number 1 Industrial Lane, Flair. We do it all.
S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box.
Looking for trusted, affordable security and property services? Horatio Services has you covered across Trinidad and Tobago. We offer battle security, K9 patrols, 24/7 protection, and all sorts of private investigations, discreet, professional, and effective. But that's not all. We also provide construction. From building to renovation, we bring your vision to life. Landscaping, keep your outdoors looking sharp and inviting. Maintenance, repairs, upkeep, and everything in between. At Horatio Services, you get professionalism, reliability, and personal care. Whether it's safety or property support you need, visit us at Marino Street, Arima, or call 388-7070 today. Horatio Services, protection, precision, peace of mind. We are the heartbeat of the Caribbean, where the music never stops. New Era TT Radio, NETT Radio.
And of course, yes, that is where you are, New Era TT Radio. So make sure you go check us out, right? NewEraTTRadio.com. New Era TT Radio, you can get us on TuneIn for Alexa and, of course, all of your Apple devices. Yeah, you can get us there, right? Of course, we are back inside the final leg of the DriveTime Exchange with Tony Fraser. So, Tony, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Sir Charles. As we indicated at the start, we are talking with Andre Jeffers, who is an executive in the Ansa Macal Group, and who came out. He gave us the background to his getting there through university in the US, a full scholarship from the famous Howard University, a place that a lot of Trinidadians and Caribbean people generally go. I suppose it's a kind of complot. They feel on common ground at that university. So Andre walked out of school into a job with a big financial company. Give us something of your experience before you came back home.
Yeah. So I think, Wall Street is, particularly the investment banking advisory side, is quite well documented and known for its intensity, for its significant work hours. And I was working a lot, Tony. I mean, just to give you an example, I always tell this story. I started, my first day was probably in August of 2009. And I remember Mother's Day of 2010. I was in the office, so you could calculate that was on a Sunday. I was probably about 6 hours into my Sunday workday in the office. And it hit me on Mother's Day that since I started the job, I had spent every single calendar day in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I'm not working 8, 9, 10, 12 hours. Right?
Okay.
Right? But it was not uncommon. I was not an anomaly. That you go in as an investment banking analyst, you know what you're signing up for. You're making a lot of money. You're going to get a lot of opportunity. You're going to learn 10 years worth in 2 or 3 years, but you're going to be working 10 years worth in 2 or 3 years as well. And I remember that Sunday, I don't know if you call it a breakdown or what, but I remember telling my associate, so the levels are an analyst, then the next level is an associate, the next level is a VP. It was me, my associate, and the VP working in the office. I told my associate, a young lady, I said, I don't know what you're going to tell him. And I was pointing to the VP's office on the corner, but I'm leaving. I'm walking out. So I had to leave. This was at about 3 o'clock this was earlier. This was probably at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So she said, all right, I'll cover for you. So they continue working. I remember walking out. The office was located on 49th and 7th. So in and around close to Times Square, that office building was located. I remember walking out. It was sunlight. I was like, wow, I haven't been out and the sunlight in quite some time in terms of not having to go to work. I kind of walked around. I ended up walking into Times Square Church. There's a church in Times Square called Times Square Church, and they had a late service that Sunday, and I sat through it. First time I'd been to church in quite some time, given my work obligations. And I remember going home and got home about 4 o'clock, took a nap, slept until about 9:30. When I woke up, back in the day, the BlackBerry was the device that was the chain. And I remember seeing the light blinking red, which means you have unread emails. Every time I saw that, my heart started to race when you're working on Wall Street. So I went to it and I looked at the email, and it was an email from the VP, probably sent about 7:30, so about half an hour before I woke up. It said, and I quote, it said, "Hey, Andre, heard you're not feeling well. Really sorry to hear that. I hope that by now you're feeling better. We could really use your help in the office right now." I think that story in a microcosm helps you understand the world of Wall Street as a young investment banker. And in fact, I kid you not, I ignored the email. I went back to bed. I woke up and went to work on Monday, dressed now properly. And when I got in there, both of them were still in their Sunday clothes. So, grueling, not without its benefits, paid quite well, as you could imagine, for a young man living in New York. A lot of camaraderie, because I'm not alone. There are other analysts with me, so we're going through the trauma bonding almost. You learn an incredible volume, Tony. I mean, when I came out of that, there was nothing I didn't feel that I could do. There was no level, there was no person that I felt I could not engage and add meaningful value professionally to at whatever level at 22, 23. That's who I was at that age professionally. As a result of that. And then when I moved on to the Carlyle Group and worked for another few years, by the time I got back and left there and came back home around 26, I'd seen it all, right? There was an element of I've been there and back. So the world is now my oyster. And I think that accelerated me significantly to the point where I am today. That was probably that period was probably the single biggest catalyst in terms of solidifying professionally a lot of the qualities that I display today. So yeah, not without this pain.
Did you go directly to the Anson McCall Group, or you were somewhere else before?
No. So I got back home. I was burnt out. Bank account full, gas tank empty. And so I decided when I moved back home, I was going to do all the things that I didn't get the opportunity to do. I did a bit of travel. I actually then said, hey, this creative side I have where I was entering calypso competitions all in Howard and winning. Let me try and write a calypso, record a calypso, and enter a calypso tent. And nothing else to do, right? I ain't working anywhere. So I wrote a kaiso called Wimbledon, talking about how much racket it had in Trinidad around that time. Trinidad had more racket than Wimbledon.
I was wondering about the Wimbledon element of it. Racket. Yeah.
Racket. I auditioned for a couple of the tents and got into Kaiso Showcase down in San Fernando at the Palms Club. My first time.
Circular Road, right?
Yep, Circular Road with Wimbledon. Well, boy, oh boy, that was a failed experiment. And I quickly realized that my talent was not so much in the writing and performing side of the cultural arts, but in the writing side. And so I think I got in despite my ability to perform, despite my ability to sing at a professional level, but because it was such a well-composed, well-produced kaiso. And in fact, I remember the senior members of the tent, that time I think some of the senior folks were, Queen Victoria was in that tent, Ras Commander was in that tent, in fact was the sort of the head of the tent. I remember him in particular saying, short man, next year just write a kaiso for me and sing now. You don't bother with the singing thing now. Just write a kaiso. But great experience all in all. But that's where Tony, it's during that break, during that period, is I started tapping into this creative, I think I could be really good at this. And started tapping into that. So I subsequently wrote kaisos for Tigress in the next 2 years. And she went to the big yard with one. She went to the finals with one. And I, after about 18 months of returning home and not working, I was like, let me kind of re-enter and see where my footing is. This would have been my first job now in Trinidad. I would have joined the Anson Macau group as a senior analyst in what was then called something different, but effectively the same strategy office that I now run.
Yeah.
Did that for a couple of years, for about 3 years. Actually left the group for a period of time. Did some independent consulting, ended up doing some consulting work for the newly formed Trinidad Petroleum Holdings right after the restructuring of Petrotrin. That consulting assignment turned into a full-time. They want to come in full-time as an executive here, and was reporting to the chairman of the board. It was at first William Espinay, eventually Michael Commoner, as sort of the head of finance at Trinidad Petroleum Holdings, working with the subsidiaries, Heritage, Paria, etc., and also working at the holding company level, and did that for about 3 years or so. Meanwhile, in parallel, I was starting to really tap into this creative thing and say, let me try my hand at soca. And after, bouncing my head a couple of years, working closely with very close family friends and friends with Kenny Phillips and the family. Him and my dad were close, and his sons, significant soca producers, Casey Phillips of Precision Productions and Kyle Phillips, the younger brother. When I started working with Casey, he is my peer group. And when he get fed up on me, I say, well, Kyle, you don't come up in this thing. I ain't not coming up in this thing. Let's now come up in this thing together and figure out. I can figure out how to write soca, and you could figure out, where you want to fit in this soca production side of things. And we started working closely, and it was about 2 years I tried to write a soca and bring out a soca just to say I have a soca out, and artists ain't taking nothing. I ain't good. Casey tell him I ain't good. But that was my time sharpening, trying. And the first soca,
paying your dues, as it's said in the business.
Paying my dues in the business. And then my first soca song release was a song sung by Iowa George called Savannah. Mama, we reaching the Savannah in 2019 or 18. I think it might have been 2018, which came second in the Road March competition at the Soca Kingdom. So, again, me feeling like the first one I released did so well, it obviously inspired me to sharpen. And 2 years later was Stage Gone Bad, my first road march with Kess and Iowa George.
Okay. And you've gone, I am interpreting now that this year's, what's the line? The line about I work hard and
Yeah,
so
it
on
works
and so
hard.
on. So,
Yes.
so that was kind of biographical.
Absolutely, and it was both biographical, but also situation specific to the actual moment where we were working particularly hard. Because on my return to Anson McCall, I'm now the Chief Strategy Officer responsible for mergers, acquisitions, and group strategy across the sectors. We were working very hard to close that Beach Tech acquisition, which was the largest acquisition in Anson McCall's history, that I was driving. And my team and the teams were burning the midnight oil trying to get the deal closed. And it was around that time, that August, September time, when I look back in my phone where I seen the voice notes I sent to myself when I started putting together the idea. It was inspired, I think, by what was happening around me. Absolutely.
So it's really a story of your life coming forward there.
Yeah.
One of the things that attracted my sense of your importance is when you talked about I remember you saying to me that you're involved in strategy going forward.
Yes.
And that's it's outside of accounting. Not that I'm saying that you're an accountant, but
By
it's
no
to
means.
peer into the future, to
Absolutely.
see possibilities.
Yeah.
And that is really the requirement of creative thinking.
Absolutely. I delivered a keynote speech to the Rotary Regional Conference a couple of months ago. They were fascinated by the duality that I exist in and thrive in. And I remember there was a slide presented in terms of how my exploits in the creative world, how they help me in the boardroom and vice versa. And I definitely do
tell us something about that, Andre.
Oh.
How you marry the two things and you get advance out of it.
Yeah, and maybe it's not even that it's a deliberate marriage, but I when I take a step back and look at it, I think the creative storytelling that I use in soca, and a lot of my songs tend to be telling a story about something. I don't like general sort of just wine and jam. I'm telling a story about something. That creative storytelling, piecing a story together, that's what I use and apply when I'm in the boardroom presenting an investment thesis about an acquisition we should do, or about a divestment, or about a partnership. It's a story. It's a building block story that you have to narrate and bring people along with you on a journey when it comes to strategy. You have to bring people along in a song in the same way. So that creative storytelling applies to the boardroom. On the flip side, or the strategic side of me that exists in corporate, is how I apply that to my song structure. I am very deliberate about every lyric, every line. What is the emotion or the behavior I want to evoke in this piece? How will this work? If you talk to any of the people, the creatives, I don't consider myself a true creator. So when I say the creatives, I mean the real creatives, right? When they work with me, they probably get fed up by how structured I am around what I want to achieve in this piece of the song. And how that plays into what I want to hear from a production perspective, specifically here, because I see the end in mind. I create with the end in mind. And I think that has to do with a strategic lens that I wear. A third thing, and I'll end with that one for this topic. Obviously, as a creative, you have to have a different relationship with rejection and negative feedback. Because in art, you are creating an expression that you have generated that may not be perceived in a positive light or in the same light. And so in for instance, getting specific in soca and songwriting and creating, you're really in the business of creating demos that artists will either say, I'm feeling this one, but I want to do this one now, I ain't feeling that. Or you're creating something in a studio with a producer who may say, I don't think that's it. I ain't good. I ain't like that. That's the arts, right? That's art.
Yes,
That's just like
yes,
visual art.
yes.
You paint a picture and somebody say, well, why this with that? But if you create a different level of resilience to criticism, to critique, and in fact, I use a lot of that feedback creatively to go and refine my product. And I think it helps now in the corporate side where I take feedback very well. I take criticism, I take rejection, I take my investment thesis being prodded and poked at with low to no ego, and all with a purpose of trying to create the best product. And so I think I've seen that help me as well. So those are a couple of things where I see how playing in both spheres has helped actually me be better in each of them.
Yeah, and you have you have to have a lot of self-confidence in your product. There,
Yes.
quickly, we don't have too much more time, but the association with Marshall, how
Yes.
did that come about?
So funnily enough, and he told this story as well. A lot of why I wanted to get into soca, not just soca, I wanted to ride road marches, was because there was an era where I find Marshall was just winning too many. Too easily. No competition, nobody putting up a fight, and I felt like I could create a thing that could really let the level be lifted. So the reality is, when you look at, when I mentioned Iowa George Savannah, we lost to Marshall that year. When you look at Stage Gone Bad, we beat Marshall that year, who had Shell. And so I have been in competition with Marshall for quite some time. And there were times where the relationship got quite tense. Quite testy when we would meet up backstage in some of those road marches. Because the road march is an intense race. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. People say, well, I don't care about that. But when people in the race, you don't care about it until it's you and another one. In the race, for sure, it gets very, very intense. And we were intense times in our relationship. So this was the first time us working together. And we laugh about it all the time. Well, who would have thought, eh? Who would have thought we would be on the same side now, competing against somebody else?
Right.
Mutual respect was always there. I think he respected the art, he respected the work, he respected the competition. He is a fierce competitor himself. And it was a really good working relationship. I think creatively and strategically, we think very similarly. And he has a level of attention to detail to the product and the process and the business and the strategy that I do as well. So I think we share that in common. It was a pleasure working with him. And I'm sure before either of us call it a day, in terms of that form of creative expression, I'm sure we will work again in the future.
So you've lined up one for next year already?
I wouldn't say I have that one. I don't have that one, but I have 2 to 3 that didn't make it out this year because when party hit, it just took over the whole place. I think with some fine tuning and some tweaking could make a lot of noise. But I haven't created that new, fresh one yet. So we'll see. Next year could be 2 to 3 ones that were bubbling that have now perfected and they're ready to come out of the oven. Or it could be a new one. One of my producers sent me something yesterday and said, I have a beat for you. And my other producer sent me something today saying, I have something for you. So let's see the next couple of months.
Andre Jeffers, it's been enlightening chatting with you, and really hope that our listeners, our viewers, would get a sense of, having to work hard, having to have an objective, having to put aside things. I think it's biblical somewhere, put aside the things of your youth and move into a different kind of space and so on to where you have got to. And I'm sure that it will continue along that line, both at the level of the executive and at the level of the creative. Thank you very much for coming this afternoon. And I'm sure Charlo knows much more about that kind of music than I do. And I'm sure that he's pumping up some piece of music there to play already.
Yeah, well, I didn't really move from where I was because I was intensely listening to the conversation. I just left it there. So this is the same way I'm leaving you this afternoon.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. And we shall talk again in the future, I am sure.
Absolutely. Take good care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care, man.
Bye.
So the treasury broke and they say that recession jamming.
All right, so this is where we bring the curtains down on the DriveTime Exchange. 2 wonderful interviews this afternoon there on testimonials, Tony.
Yeah, definitely. Both of them in different ways. One a spiritual renewal, and one a kind of education objective. The desire to move forward from where he was born and where he grew up into a different kind of space. And I think it's a wonderful example of how people can move forward in their lives, which is what which is the story we want to tell when we do these kinds of interviews. So, Chalo, that's it. Tomorrow, incidentally, we had scheduled a program on AI, artificial intelligence, for Tuesday, yesterday, but we departed from it for, well, West Indies cricket took over, and one of the panelists had a difficult throat, so that the two things fitted in nicely. So tomorrow, we're going to do the AI stuff, and we're going to have Mark Lindsay, well-known journalist, photographer, coming to talk with us, and Nigel Romano, a businessman, a financier, like Andre, somebody working in finance, talking about AI, what it is. I don't think it has been fully explained and understood by the average person, and the challenges of it to make it useful in our lives.
Okay, so we look to see what's going to be happening tomorrow. All right, so thank you very much. This has been the Drive Time Exchange on New Era TT Radio.
We require them to manage us not supplying. When election time come back wrong, it's new ones we bring in. But if it's one thing about my people, I could guarantee that they would never ever put party before country. And if the country fails it, it's dark, it's sour. And our people need us today more than ever. But in our cover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember. We could make